What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports once again. If you're a long-time listener, I appreciate you coming back. And if this is your first time, I appreciate you giving me a shot. This is the Buckeye Remix episode that I try to do every week after a Buckeye game. Unlike last week, didn't have one, so we did playoff rankings. So here we go. High State played Indiana yesterday, top 10 matchup, and they won. So full disclosure, before we get started here, yes, I grade the Buckeyes hard. We all know that. I take a lot of flack for it, but it's because I grade them against the best in the country, not the Big Ten, so to speak. So a win's a win. That's the most important thing this year is keep winning. If they win out, they're in. We know that's the most important thing. Three, if I would say if anybody thinks that team, so okay, it boils down to this. How good do we think Indiana really is? If Indiana is actually a top 10 team, then yesterday's victory is pretty good. At one point, we had it to a 28-point lead. Things got away. We all know the rest. But if we think that Indiana's a top 10 team, then we take a decent victory over a top 10 team. But what I would ask, the question I would ask is, do we honestly think in our heart of hearts that Alabama couldn't beat Indiana by more than 7 points? Because if not, then what we're saying is Alabama is at a higher level than Ohio State right now. That is my concern. I grade Ohio State based on Clemson, Alabama this season. I will not lie, even Notre Dame at this point. So that's where this comes from. As far as, the guys getting to play and all that. That's great. I'm glad everything's working out. I'm glad we got to play a game. It was a great game. It really was an enjoyable game for probably most people that aren't Buckeyes fans. I happen to be a insane, ridiculous, irrational Buckeyes fan, so it wasn't my favorite game ever. But that's regardless of that, that they won. Then we're going to move on from there. Okay, so. Let's get on our knee-jerk reactions here. Immediate knee-jerks. Okay, everybody knows the elephant in the room here is pass coverage. We gave up almost 500 yards, passing to Penix and 5 touchdowns. And I heard after the game, they not to pick on Sean Wade, but I heard they interviewed Sean Wade and they asked him straight up about it, about the pass coverage. And, he put it off a little bit or, waved it away a little bit as a coverage breakdowns. So I'm like, man, that felt like a lot of coverage breakdowns. So I look into it. So there was a 68-yard, reception that set up a touchdown. And then there was a 63-yard touchdown, a 33-yard touchdown, and another 56-yard touchdown. So there was 220 yards and 3 touchdowns worth of coverage breakdowns. I don't think so. You call it what you want. That's bad defense. It's poor defense. A coverage breakdown, you give up a couple big plays. I remember very distinctly last year versus Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. I went back and looked at it, and we gave up, I think it was something like 80% of Wisconsin's yards were on 3 plays. Okay, those are breakdowns. Those are outliers. When you give up, Freifogel it was averaging 30 yards a reception, 30 yards per reception, over 30 yards per reception. So these aren't coverage breakdowns. These are, this is 4 weeks into this now. It's an issue is what it is. It's an issue. So, that being said, my knee jerk was serious issues in the pass coverage. Indiana abandoned the running game. They totally abandoned the running game. Didn't even care. That's how little they respected Ohio State's pass defense. That's scary. We haven't seen. I mean, we're talking Ohio State that puts out NFL defensive backs year after year after year after year. That's not typical for a team to completely disrespect them like that. So that's a real thing. So as far as, another thing, I think we can all agree this is crazy to grade him like this. Fields is a wonderful quarterback. I think this is his worst game as a Buckeye. Now, his worst game as a Buckeye is 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And like I said, at one point, you can't overlook the fact that at one point they had a 28-point lead on we hope, a top 10 team in the country. But it just felt like for a minute, maybe he could have reeled it in a little bit. Maybe we could have went to a little more dink and dunk. You know, I don't blame it all on him. He gets so many yards off distance travel. Like his his ball's in the air a lot more than most quarterbacks, and it's wonderful. It puts huge pressure on defenses. Once again, Olave and Wilson, had over 100 yards, looked great. The ball travels so much in the air, puts a ton of pressure on defenses. I'm not taking anything away from that, but maybe there's a point to where you're like, it's reeled in a little bit. We're running the ball at will, dink and dunk. Him trying. The one interception, the first interception. I mean, it's a single high safety, and it's just a throw that he doesn't normally make, and he tries to force it in to I believe it was Wilson going down the middle of the field. That's not like him, but that's a single high safety just standing there. That is basic defense that every team runs. So that was concerning. The one where he's forcing his way out, he's forced out of the pocket and he's running, he's falling down and lobs the ball up. That is so unlike him. I couldn't believe it, but those count, and it still wound up being a crazy interception, but yet an interception. And that you can't overlook those things in a top 10 game. You can't make those mistakes against a team that, has firepower. So that's what I would say about that. So Stephen Gillespie here, from another member of the Off the Ball Network. How does this affect Heisman voting? It definitely affects it. I mean, they're going to look at these players every game. When you got Mac Jones at Alabama having his way with anybody in the SEC, this is without a doubt the first time Fields has struggled. It's not that he can't come back from it, but it does affect it. If you're a Heisman person, it absolutely affects it. I mean, this will be the game that they point to, like, the 3 interceptions, blah, blah, blah. And to his credit, Fields was upfront about it. He was miserable after the game, which I personally like. I like for him to realize that, I'm not by no means was it his fault. We grade this team very, tightly, but he recognized that he didn't play his best game, and then at some of the reasons that things got out of hand were his, and he was miserable after the game, and not like a spoiled brat miserable, but like he realizes they let one get away, recognizes the importance of it, and I like that. I thought that he was a grumpy elf after the game, and I don't blame him. I felt better about that. He didn't give us a win's a win. Like, he realized that this meant something. So, good for him. But that's just my knee jerks. That's the biggest thing. But once again, just we're not at playoff level yet. We got 3 games. That's what, or 4, hopefully 4. Northwestern looks like they're in the driver's seat in the West, which is crazy. That win over Wisconsin was big. So, kudos to them. And it looks like, they're on a collision course right now. And we saw this a couple years ago. Pat Fitzgerald's teams they'll bug you. they won't lay down for you. So anyway, that's a long way ahead. Next week's in. So okay, here we go. Sorry, I get distracted. It was a crazy game. There's so much to say about it. Let's get on to the offense. Just real quick. Here's the bottom line though. The offense had over 600 yards. 600 yards. That's so many yards. Over 300 yards passing, over 300 yards rushing. The rushing game was crazy. I think they averaged. They were 6, 7, 8 yards a carry. Master Teague looked great. He had his way with them. I felt like we could have run the ball more. This is a game that I kept thinking that, and I'm not saying we want to do this with Fields or anything like that, but this is one of those games I kept thinking, like a few years ago when we had JT Barrett. This is a game to where they're like, let's just go ahead and grind this one out. We're going to put up 400 yards rushing. We may not score 42, but they're not going to get the ball. But you're not going to do that, Fields, and I don't blame him. He's a magician, great quarterback. You got to use him. But the run game was unstoppable yesterday, and and still, like, once again, there's still 300 passing yards and 3, and a couple touchdowns, and Fields had one running in. So offense looks good. We talked about it already. Fields' worst game. And he still had 303. So we'll take that. If our worst game is a win over a top 10 team, and Fields still has 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, that's the level that we want to be at. We've had these games in the past to where we didn't get away with this, and it bit us, and this one didn't. And once again, until we see Indiana play a couple more games, we're hoping they're as good as they looked yesterday. Because if not, then the whole Big Ten's in trouble, and definitely Ohio State. But here's the one thing I will say about the offense that I keep. So, a friend of mine, Jay Stevens, he does the Locked On Buckeyes podcast. He's the host of that show. Does a great job, and he's been beating the drum for over a year about Justin Fields needs to basically throw the ball. And we talked about this a little bit, but when he's getting chased out of the pocket a lot of times, if you really look at the clock, it's 4 or 5 seconds into the play, which if you get, we all know, I think it's 2.7 seconds is the goal for a quarterback. If you give a quarterback 2.7 seconds, they should be able to get a throw off. He's getting 3 and 4 seconds, and then he's rushed out of the pocket, and then we're killing the offensive line because of protection breakdown. But these guys in their head count to 3, and at that, when they get to 3, that ball should either be on its way or really close. It feels, the one bad interception he threw, I believe it was 7 seconds that he was back in the pocket running around. That is way too. Every team in the country is going to look like the 87 Giants if you give him that much time. So that's the thing. I think he could speed up a little bit, and these are small critiques, but that's what. And a bit of that's coaching. Let's call some shorter routes. Let's get things. We barely used the tight ends yesterday. Didn't dump as much off to the running backs like we normally do. It just felt like we're playing a little slow. Got a little greedy. So. Oh, okay. So Stephen Gillespie, the one area I fear won't be fixed. It's obvious. It's defense. It's the secondary. I don't know. I don't think the players are there to fix it. And I hate to say that. I never it's nothing personal against the players. I'm sure they're fine individuals and they're going to be okay. But I don't think that I don't think that's something you can turn around overnight. That tends to linger on. Sean Wade is just all right as the number one corner. I really don't think he's the number one corner at this point. Once again, he's out of position. He is going to be a fine NFL player, so a shockingly good NFL player, I think, once they get him in the right spot. This is not it. I've beat you guys over the head with it. I won't go into it anymore. But this secondary, the safety play is just, I don't know. Yes, you know what? Here we go. Here's another great one. Yeah, no improvement thus far. The secondary, Mike Eric says, hope I pronounced that, Mike. I apologize. Little to no improvement in the pass rush or the secondary. And this is what worries me. And this is why, I think I am not a guy that's going to, start the fire under Day's seat. But I understand it's a coaching staff. I look at teams as a coaching staff. But they've got to improve in 4 games in. They've got to be better. We have no edge rush. Penix never looked worried yesterday that someone was going to hit him from a blind side or strip sack. We don't bring the strip sack into play. And the defensive line is pretty good. Against the the run, they're really good. They're good physical guys. I'm just saying they they're not causing fear in the quarterback like we have the last, say, 6-7 years. And that's huge. Yeah, that's a good point. But the only reason I'll say it can't be fixed, I don't consider defensive line a problem. I just think they're limited. I think their ceiling's low. As far as edge rush, all great tacklers, all very physical, but the secondary is a problem. That's straight up a problem, Mike. So that's it. I think we could speed up the offense a little bit. There's no way I can say 600 yards didn't look good. It was fine. We had total control of that game, but that was the problem. 28-point lead, but 12 minutes left in the third quarter, and you got a 28-point lead. So then you just got to hold on. And if you're going to run an offense like that, and you're going, it sounds crazy. We've seen Pac-12 team, we've seen Oregon deal with this for years. They could score at will, but then the other team always gets a shot. Next. That's the thing. You always have to give the ball back. So maybe it would have been a case yesterday to where I could see them just slowing down just a little bit, maybe a 5-minute drive. I don't know what the answer is when you're this good, but they're going to have to find it because they're going to need that. At some point, they're going to need to keep the other team's offense off the field. Yesterday was a great case. So then, real quick, we got another comment from Mike. Thanks, Mike. Open field tackling has certainly been hit or miss. Yeah, I think I think it's getting better though, and I think this is across college football because players are just smaller. And when I say smaller, they're leaner and faster. They're not the brutes, but I think it's better than it was. The problem with yesterday, Mike, was like the guys when they caught the ball were wide open. I mean, there was no tackles missed. Like we weren't touching them. So yeah, I thought the linebackers did all right. We'll talk about them here in a minute. I thought the linebackers did a better job at the point of attack. But it was such a weird game because Indiana just took them out of it. Like it was they everything that Penix looked at was 20 yards downfield. It was pretty impressive actually to watch him do it. I take nothing away from that guy. I think he might be legit. I think he's probably, I don't even know if it's probably, he's the second best quarterback in the Big Ten. I don't even think it's close. But yeah, it's a little different, but I don't know if you'll ever have the silver bullets again because you're also not playing against teams that are coming out in an I formation. The silver bullets excelled when they're running downhill. Like when we play a team, if we play a team that wants to run right at us, I mean, you saw Indiana yesterday just totally abandon the run. So like you're taking that out of it. You're bringing into it's the 5 defensive backs and everybody else is just hoping. So, but yeah, definitely appreciate the comments, guys. Let's move on to defense here. I know it's a little scatterbrained. There's so much happened in that game. I was totally wound up. I was probably angrier than a normal human should be watching their team win a top 10 game. Once again, I'm going to reiterate, boy, I hope Indiana's this good because if they're not, it's going to be a dumpster fire. But okay, there we go. Defense, we've already touched on this. No edge rush. They did not push Penix around the pocket at all. The sacks were legit, and they stepped up late. The defense is physical. I think Browning plays a little better. If there's a bright spot, I think he plays a little better every week. I like what he's doing and making some big plays. Wade had the pick 6. He baited him into that, but that's Wade's game. That's where Wade needs to be. He's a safety. Like the guy is a really good safety. He's a ball hawk. That's not what a cornerback is. It's not what an outside cornerback is. Great play. The full credit to him. He totally baited him into it. He totally knew it was coming, and that was a huge touchdown. It's not to say that he's a bad player. He's just out of position. We've already talked about Shaun Wade enough. It's definitely a situation. He's just the teams are going after him, and that's weird. I mean, we're in the Big Ten, and teams are going after him. Now, I do believe he's a competitor, and I do believe that he will step up. And the thing is, he'll tackle, he'll fight, he'll battle you. So those are all great things. He's got. I'm not giving him any games right now. I'm not giving him. Any team that has a quarterback with an arm has a shot against Ohio State right now because of the huge plays they give up. So I'm not going to just sit here and say that nothing's going to happen to the Big Ten championship game or the playoffs. Like there's a long way to go before that. But it's definitely a concern. There's definitely concerns on defense when you're giving up this many yards and this many big, huge plays, and there's nobody around. They're not flukes. These are legitimate holes in your defense. So, we're not going to beat them down anymore. They stepped up when they had to. They looked good for a half. That's why I say if you stop that game with, I think it was 12 minutes left in the second half, I'm as happy as can be. We're physical. We're holding them down. We're scoring at will. And then the rails just, the rails, we just fell off the rails, went off the rails. So, anyway, it is what it is. So that's what I feel about the defense. Coaching. Here's what I say about coaching. A couple things. Like one, the adjustments aren't being made. Defense, we miss Jeff Hafley a lot. The defense is not making the adjustments they need to make. They know what's coming. Everybody on Twitter knew what was coming yesterday. Like Indiana, and for anybody that watches Ohio State more than Indiana doesn't put up a lot of yards. This was way outside. They're not a 600-yard a week team. They're they average like a little over 300 yards a week, and we gave up 500 yards passing. So coaches, the adjustments aren't being made. I think Ryan Day in this. Okay, so there's two things about the play. Let's talk about this play. Late in the fourth, it's fourth down. I believe a couple yards to go. They're inside the 10-yard line. Hey, you have to kick that field goal to go up by 10. If you go up by 10, the game is pretty much over, or you're making it very difficult. So they went for it. That's fine. You've got all the talent in the world. You've got Justin Fields. The play was there. I will say this, like, I don't know how Justin misses the tight end. That's not like him. And I know he was under pressure, but it's not like him. The guy's wide open. If he catches that, we score 50 points or 49 points probably. And then we're having a different conversation right now. But still, you have to kick that field goal. Your field goal kickers, if he's so bad that he can't make it would have been maybe a 17, or it couldn't be a 17, like 20-yard field goal, whatever it would have been. You got to kick that and take that 10 points in that situation. But I'm not going to beat him over, the head about it, because the team is so talented, and it did work. The play did work. The tight end was so wide open, but hey, didn't go through. But just the lack of adjustments. The defense just seems clueless as far as, like, they're just not well coached. They don't have a plan, and it's really starting to bother me. Yeah, there are a lot of things. Okay, so Stephen asked, for those listening on audio, Stephen Gillespie asked, is there anything the coaches can do schematically to help the secondary? Yes, they need to just, if they can't play as much man-to-man as they're playing, they have to admit, their limitations. They have to go into just cover 2 and keep things in front of them. And we have the athletes to get some turnovers, because the man-to-man's not working. So what's the difference? I think you have to go straight cover 2. I think these safeties and I think everybody needs to look downhill and see the ball in front of them, see the play in front of them. And then, of course, you can switch it up. Then you switch it to man, but the constant man-to-man, I mean, they're just getting beat. Yes, I definitely think that they need to dumb it down. I shouldn't say dumb it down. That's rude. It's very hard to play football. They need to go. I think they just need to go into the cover 2. Maybe a little more blitzing at that point. But it just what they're doing now. I mean, all we see play after play are these guys chasing wide receivers down the field, and that is not good. Okay, so Mike asked, as far as coaching, lack of discipline has been reoccurring. Exactly. And I hope, Mike, you're with me. I think we're talking about on-field discipline, not off-the-field discipline. Oh, yeah, too many penalties. Killed them yesterday. And here's another one about so holding especially. Hey, there's another one where you say, like, the ball's not out of their hands, and these guys are trying to they know if they give Fields 5 seconds, the chances are he's going to throw a 50-yard pass. So that's pressure. If you watch these other teams, like the quarterback's getting rid of the ball. As far as these, personal fouls, like the one yesterday, the one that they called on the, I forget now, the defensive lineman for the shot to the head. You don't call that. That's only called because it's Ohio State versus Indiana. And I'll say it right here. You watch 100 games. I watched almost parts of every game yesterday. They do not call that play. It happens every play. But yes, the one drive, like that Mike's referring to, I believe it was 30 to 50 yards of penalties on a drive, and then they scored a touchdown, to end it. So, in Penn State, we talked about it. You're almost off the field, and then you get a personal foul. Now, some of them don't bother me. Some of them are like, well, it is what it is. Like that one, like I know they called that. If you go back and look at that one, on the defensive lineman, it doesn't matter who it was. If you go back and look at that, it's not his fault. Like that, they got a little rambunctious, but they don't call that. But but here's another thing I'll say about that, Mike. They shouldn't have to play that clean to beat a team like Indiana, in my opinion. We'll see. Once again, we have no idea. But so that's what I have for coaching. So all right. Okay. Let's get onto the grade card here. I know you guys think I kill them. You really do. You think I'm too hard on them, and I am, because I know what they need to do to win it all. So there we go. Here's a grade card. Quarterback. I can't believe this. First time, a B minus. 2 of the interceptions were complete lack of judgment, poor judgment. They were completely on him. I can't overlook it. He had 11 incompletions. I mean, I know he's great, but I'm just saying we're grading game to game. It wasn't his best game. So Fields got a B minus yesterday, which killed me to write it down. And believe me, I'm not trading him for any other quarterback in the country. It's just a grade watching him yesterday. It hurts me as much as it hurts you. Wide receivers, I gave an A. They did. I mean, they were open every time they needed to be open. They caught every ball. Once again, a lot of it. Wilson's just on. Can't. I mean, it looked like you could cover him, but you really can't. I mean, it was at will. They were moving. So I give him an A. Actually, running backs, I gave an A. Master Teague really showed up yesterday. I mean, the guy, even I think Trey Sermon had, I want to say he had somewhere around 60, 70 yards and was averaging like 6 yards a carry. It looked good. Master Teague ran all over him. When they handed, they actually did a pretty good job picking up blitzes. They did miss a couple. But you're going to have that. You're going to have that team, an aggressive team like Indiana. But overall, man, the running backs did exactly. They gave them the ball and they got you, 6, 7 yards a carry. Yeah, I'll take that. So they got an A for the first time this season. Great job. O-line, I gave him a B. We talked about it. The run blocking was outstanding, and I don't put all the sacks on the offensive line. A quarterback, he's got to know the situation. He's got to know they're blitzing. They're going to do this to him all year. Like it's no secret that teams are going to, they know Fields wants to hold the ball an extra second. They're going to bring extra guys. They're going to do it all year. Fields has to know that, has to adjust and not put his offensive line in a situation like they did. I don't think that they looked as bad as the stats look when you start counting seconds. I really don't. I think they did a pretty good job, and they just mauled them. They got 600 yards. They got 600 yards and 42 points. We can't go to the offensive line and say that it's on them. The holding penalties, weren't horrible. So I gave them a B. Defensive line, I gave a C. And the only reason is because Indiana stopped running the ball, which completely almost negated the defensive line. They try hard. They got a couple sacks, but they just, there's no, well, we talked about it. There's no edge rush. And that, that's part of your defensive line. I should have graded them harder because they made Indiana stop running, but then I don't think Indiana cared that they had to stop running the ball. They do it week after week. They could care less whether they run the ball or not. So they got to see yesterday just because there's not a huge impact. Penix didn't look too concerned back there. Linebackers, I gave him a B because the opposite of the defensive line, Indiana didn't involve the linebackers in the pass game because they were going so deep. They got into the secondary. So the linebackers didn't have a whole lot of responsibility in the pass game. They made great tackles. Werner did a really nice job yesterday, he put some pressure on and he's really the reason they shut down the run game. So I thought the linebackers played pretty well. Browning had some huge plays. Once again, I think he gets a little better every week, which makes me happy. He's got 4 weeks to get a lot better, which is cool. That's college football. These kids grow up every day. Defensive backs, I don't know what else to say. A D plus, and here's why: because if you're never factored into the play, like it's the second half, every play was positive yardage and big yardage, and you're the defensive backs. I don't know what else to do with this. I feel bad by saying that, but what can I say? Let's read it again: 68-yarder. 63-yard touchdown, a 33-yard touchdown, a 56-yard touchdown, and I think there was another 20-some yard touchdown there. I mean, they got chunks on this secondary. So there's no other way to put it. And I do respect the touchdown. Maybe that's where the plus comes from in the D plus. I'm glad Wade got it, but man, that was a tough day for them. And I know, yeah. I had to do it, Steven. Tough love, man. We're grading based on his best. Fields definitely gets graded on a curve. He's an A for most teams in the country, but this isn't most teams, and I think he would agree. I don't think he gave himself an A yesterday either. From the way he looked in his press conference, head coach, I gave a C. And when I say head coach, I know it's a coaching staff, but just you knew what was coming, and you never really adjusted to it. You made a couple calls in there. In general, you had 2 weeks to get ready for Indiana, and I don't know. I'm probably overjudging it, but I think it wasn't his best play calling day. I thought he got a little greedy in the rain and the cold. So and then of course the big mark was not taking that field goal. I know that if they get to touchdown, he looks like a hero, but that wasn't the time. That was the time you got to play the numbers. You take that, you take that 10-point lead. That's ginormous. So that could have went very poorly. So sorry, man. Had to do it. So, all right, real quick here. While you guys are with me, I'm going to go ahead and release my playoff rankings. They come out officially Tuesday night. We're going to do a show Tuesday night, and for our reaction over the college football playoff rankings. But I'm going to give you all mine because I like to get mine in ahead of time because I don't want people thinking that I stole them. You have to excuse me here. This is going to take a second. I got to switch over. I know you're seeing it live. I need a producer, guys. If anybody wants to be a producer, you just let me know. There we go. Okay. Why is it not up? Nope. I must have picked the wrong one. Let's go to, I apologize here, everybody. We'll get it this time. There we go. And boom. That was anticlimactic, wasn't it? Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. So let's take the report card off there. You guys don't want to see the report card anymore, do you? Boom. Okay. So here we go. My college football playoff rankings for week 13 is what we're going by. Essentially November 22nd through November 29th. Number one, still got Alabama. I mean, they've done zero to not deserve it. They've looked great. They're improving and they're just walking through teams. I think it was a 50 some point victory over Kentucky. No problem. They're clearly the number one team right now. Number two, I still have Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They didn't play, but they've got the big win versus Clemson. We talked about it last week. They look great on both sides, physical on both sides of the ball, and Book is playing really good. They're solid number two. Number three, I got the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, we know that they're not better. Like, I don't think they beat Florida tomorrow. I don't think they beat Clemson tomorrow. But that being said, they're absolutely, if they win out, they're in, and they're really, really good. So they're number three. They're still at number three at 4-0. I got the Florida Gators at number 4 because their offense can score with anybody in the country, and I mean Alabama when I say that. And they get a shot at Alabama. I think they got a really nice. I mean, they've got a great chance. They're another position. They win out, they're in. Like it's plain and simple. They went out, they're in. Number 5, I got Clemson. Clemson's a tough one. So we haven't seen Trevor Lawrence now in 3 weeks. They had a game postponed this past weekend. So you have to factor in the fact that the last time we seen him was a loss against Notre Dame. I know Lawrence is going to come back and they're really good, but they do, if things go right, they still do play Notre Dame again, and Notre Dame beat them. So I've got Clemson just behind Florida. But once again, Clemson takes care of their own path. They went out, they're in, no problem. So number 6, I get the Cincinnati Bearcats moved up to number 6. The country's kind of warmed up to them. They've done everything they can do. They're undefeated. They kind of gave away a late touchdown and would have made it look a little better the other night. But I think they've put themselves in position because of the Indiana loss and the Wisconsin loss. I think they put themselves in position that people are going to talk about them. I'm curious to see what the committee does with them Tuesday night. I really am. I think they're going to have them as high as I do, even though theirs is more. Mine is more for odds to get there than theirs will be, but we'll see. I'm curious. So that's why we'll do the show. Number 7, BYU Cougars. They're doing that. Oh, I missed a T there. I promise. I apologize if it's looking. Something got through spell correct, but BYU Cougars, they look great. They're doing everything they can do. They're winning out, and it's just going to be like they need a ton of stuff, just like Cincinnati. They need a bunch of stuff to happen in front of them. I don't even want to get into scenarios to get these teams in. It's harder than you think, because the combination up top, like Alabama can take a loss, Notre Dame can take a loss, Ohio State can probably take a loss, Clemson. So they need a lot of help up top. So, but hey, they're doing their part. Texas A&M made it to number 8 this week. I personally don't think they have a chance because they already played Alabama and they're in Alabama's division. And I can't see them putting 2 teams from one division and one conference in 2020. But then everybody else has them ranked up there. And if you look at their wins, it's pretty good. They've only lost to Alabama. And with some help, there's no way Alabama's losing. It's just going to be where they're not going to play their conference championship game. But at the end of the year, they might have a better quote unquote resume than say Oregon Ducks. So but bumped Texas A&M up to number 8, even though I really don't think there's much of a chance. Number 9, their first time in the top 10, my top 10, Northwestern Wildcats from the Big Ten. They beat Wisconsin over the weekend to take, like we said, take charge of the West. Essentially, they went out their end because that would include a championship game against Ohio State. So, Northwestern is another team that, they went out their end. They win the next 4 games, they're in the playoffs. Like, there's no question about it. So they jumped into the top, 10 this week. Pretty impressive. Do I think that they're a top 10 team? No, I don't. But that doesn't – we're talking about playoff rankings here. We are not talking about, top 25. And still at we got a comment here. Hand it off. Okay, so here we go. Number 10, I got the Oregon Ducks. Queasy about this one. I knew this was going to come up this week. We're going to talk about it here in a bit, Prez. I got the Oregon Ducks still at 10. And mainly, I think they have the chance because if they really, really, really want to just mix it up and have a variety and have a Pac-12 team in, you can tell how old I am. I said Pac-10, Pac-12 team in. I really think that they'll kind of lean on Oregon, but I also don't think that Oregon, they need a lot of help too. I think if it came down to it might even be an argument between Cincinnati, BYU, and Oregon. I don't think Oregon just jumps them because they're in the Pac-12. They didn't look. I mean, they got to win against UCLA, but they weren't dominant. And we talked about the Pac-12 needs to be dominant. So I got Oregon at 10, but it's shaky. And we got a comment here from Off the Ball president Chris LeBron. Yes, Chris, the Canes dropped out. The Miami Hurricanes were in here last week. I dropped them out specifically because they missed 2 games in a row, and they need so much help from Clemson and Notre Dame, to get a shot. But it's really because I would have them at 11. I think Miami and Oregon are 1A and 1B as far as that 10th spot. And, Miami, we don't know if they're going to be able to make up the games. So I don't think that Miami's not going to get the benefit of the doubt if they can't play out their schedule. Just like other teams won't either. So yeah, Miami, they fell out just because they're not playing, but that doesn't mean they can't work their way back in. So don't lose hope, man. Don't lose hope. I think right now, like Miami is probably they would probably be 7 or 8 just in rankings. And we'll see Tuesday night what the committee thinks of Miami, but it's so tough when these teams aren't playing. It's, we saw what Wisconsin did. They kept Wisconsin up there. They played 1 game, and then they missed 2. But everybody, all the rankings kept Wisconsin in the top 10. And then they come back, they look good against Michigan, and then they lose. So really, they're 2-1. So you can't just keep a team up there because they're not playing. I don't, even Clemson, I dropped to 5, which is insane. We know how good Clemson is, but if you're not playing, you're not playing. It's 2020 for you. So that's it. That's a lot. I really enjoyed them. Kind of do that every week. I think I'll, you guys, let's get a better overlay here. I apologize. Let's bring Justin and Chris back in. I know it's hard on you guys, but I apologize. Just you're still my boys. I love I love you all. On to Illinois this week. I have no idea what that means. We know that it's going to be 10 degrees and windy. Any Ohio State fan knows that it's going to be the worst weather ever. But I can't. There's not much I can say except for this. This has to be a solid victory. Anything else is a disappointment. But I'll congratulate him again on a top 10 victory. I hope that holds up. And that's the main thing. You went out there and you got the victory, guys. But and then anyway, sorry, on to Illinois. I want to thank everybody for listening. Go check out the rankings, do a little write-up on the Off the Ball Network. I do the NFL power rankings each week. All the guys are putting out a ton of content. So please go check out, offtheballnetwork.com, see what everybody's doing, subscribe to everybody's shows and our YouTube channels, and got a lot going on. We got Facebook pages, and groups, and it's really, really a lot of stuff going on right now. Appreciate anybody that listens to Jeff Needs Sports. Subscribe, a 5-star rating would be awesome. We all know how much those mean to us. And this, if you're listening to the audio version, I really appreciate it. If you're watching, I really appreciate it. This show's a lot of fun. So that's it. Everybody, thanks again. Be kind to each other. Go Bucks, and on to Illinois.